Hello everyone, I am finally going to use this amazing box of oil pastels that I got a few months ago and which I put in my to-do drawer and has been sitting in there for quite a while, but yay, I'm finally getting to open them and use them. It's so big it doesn't even fit on the camera. This is the Sennelier 48 set of oil pastels, and I'll just pop it sideways so we can see the whole box. Right, let's have a look. Here's a ruler. So it's just a little bit over 30 centimeters wide long, so it's quite a big box. What have we got? About 33 centimeters long, so yeah, it's quite big. Let's have a quick look at them, shall we? Oh, lovely spongy covering, which keeps them all nice and safe. And if I can get it out, get my fingers in the corner, there we go. There is something really satisfying about brand new art supplies when they've not been touched yet and they're all even and wonderful. I'm going to make a mess of them today probably, but that's what they're there for, and I'm really excited. And what's even more fun is I'm doing a collaboration with someone, my first one ever. I've found that since I've joined YouTube, I've made a few YouTube friends, which has been really fantastic and something I hadn't particularly thought about until we started chatting to each other, and it's really, really lovely to connect with other people from around the world, so I've been enjoying that. Today's collaboration is with my YouTube friend who lives in Denmark, so basically on the total opposite side of the world from where I am in Melbourne, Australia, so that's really lovely. Her name is Pernille and her YouTube account is Xargot Hunter, and I'm going to link her down in the description below and link her video that she's going to do at the same time that I'm making my video. And we both decided to do a drawing of a tiger. Now we're not going to do the exact same drawing because that would be probably a bit boring. We are going to use the same oil pastels though. I'm not sure if she's got the 48 set, but she's definitely got the Sennelier Oil Pastels. So we're drawing a tiger with Sennelier Oil Pastels, and if you want to check out her video, it's down below, and I hope that my drawing turns out well enough to put up. I've taken photos of tigers over the years, but I was looking through them and just none of them were speaking to me. So I went and had a look on Pixabay, which is a website where you can download people's photos and use them royalty free. It's fantastic. And I do have an account, which I've linked in the description below, with some of my photos that are free to use. But I went and had a browse on there and I found this fabulous photo by Gellinger, I'm going to say. It could be Gellinger. I do apologise if I've mispronounced that, but I thought I would do this photo today because it's just fantastic. And I did a small printout, and I've actually taken out the black because I didn't want to use all of my black ink, more just so I could get a closer view of it. Sometimes I don't have my phone with me, so I just did a small printout of it. But I am going to do a black background, I've decided, because I don't care for it so much on white. But I've got that as my reference picture. Today I'm using a material that I've never ever used before, and that is Pastel Mat by Clairefontaine. And I've already gone and drawn out my outline from here. And I've made mine just a little bit bigger actually. It's really, really thick. It's like a cardstock. It's very smooth on the back and it's like super thick, and on the front it's got a very lightly rough textured surface. It's not as strong as some other pastel papers that I've touched where it's really, really sanded. I didn't want to have anything that was too textured because if you remember me doing my macaw drawing, I used Canson Miton's pastel paper and it was very, very textured. It had a very strong tooth and I was getting a lot of texture in the picture. I wanted something this time that's got no texture, if I can avoid it, or, you know, like a nice smooth background. Obviously I'm not going to use every single colour in this because it is a fairly limited palette, being a tiger, but I've gone through and chosen some colours that I think might work with it, and I may end up picking some more because there are also a few that might go. There's 2 blacks in here and I don't know which one is which because annoyingly the pastels only have a number on them but they don't have the name written anywhere that I can find. So there's 2 blacks here and I think I'll choose the number 98 over the number 23, but I really need to look these up and see what they are. Oh, that's kind of a pain. But fortunately, I've actually cut this paper down a bit, so I do have a couple of offcuts, and I thought that I would swatch out the colours onto here so I can see what they look like before I jump in too much into the drawing. So without further blather from me, let's get into it. The first thing I did was tape down my pastel mat because I figured it's going to get messy, and this took me quite a long time. I could not get that tape to go straight, and I jiggled with them a bit before I was happy that they were going to give a fairly straight border. And then I went in with the background first using black oil pastels. I ended up using both of the black ones because I could see pretty quickly that I was going to use up the pastels really fast. And I tried using one of those rubble pastel shapers, but it wasn't making it nice and smooth, so I got the linseed oil out again and I painted it on to blend out that black pastel. And I did get a bit liberal with the oil here, you could see it shining in the light, and so I got a paper towel and I blotted it all off just to take that off, and I did another light layer of pastel over the top just to make sure that it was a really nice and smooth background, and I used the paper towel to blend it in there because once the pastel's in and it's got that layer of linseed oil, it's so much easier to spread. Now I'm working on the tiger itself, and I started off with the lighter areas using a very pale orange. I found that the orange pastel was just too strong and it was almost too red, it didn't look right, so I went in with this pale colour, and later on I used more of the browns and siennas rather than the orange. And once again I tried to use that shaper, but I just wasn't having any luck with it. I think the pastel mat was quite dry, and the oil pastel, because I've only got a fine layer on it, it just wasn't enough to spread, so the linseed oil just dissolves it like magic, and I found this so much easier to work with. I'm sure there has to be at least one pastel artist out there just squirming watching this video going, that's not how you do it, and I do apologise. I really don't know what I'm doing, I'm just making it up as I go along, which is quite often what I do with art, and I do find that that's how I have developed my own personal style over the years. Now I am going in with a much darker sienna colour and basically finding all of the shadow areas of the tiger. I will be going over this again with other layers, but it's good to lay in your shadows so you can actually see the definition early on, and I'm using a much redder sienna here. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the colours are. They do have names, so I am going to list those into the description below, so if you're interested in the colours that I've used, please check down there to see which ones I used. Now, I went in with a few different blending techniques. Firstly, I tried the shaper again, then my finger, but really I found at this stage that the wadded up piece of paper towel was working the best, and this is because that light orange layer underneath still had some linseed oil in it, and so subsequent layers were so much easier to blend in with it, and the paper towel was fantastic just for making those colours blend in really well. Here I did actually use that bright orange pastel for his nose, and that worked out well there, but otherwise I did not use the orange, I think, much at all. The earthier colours were definitely far more suitable for the tiger in the end. There are a few times when I wanted to give up on this drawing, I will admit, but I basically kept persevering, and I found that by continually layering the crayons, it started to actually look like what I wanted it to look like. But to begin with, it was quite a struggle, and it went through a very ugly phase before it started to come good again. So it's always best to not give up too early, because the painting or drawing will often change a lot over time. Then I started tackling the eyes, which was the scariest part because it was a tiny area and I was using a cotton bud or Q-tip to blend the two different colours, which were like orange and green. It was an interesting mix. And then I was using that black obviously for the pupils. So what I did with the eyes is I laid in the base colours and then I've gone back later into the drawing to finish off the details with it. But I just wanted to get them in there so I could actually see how it was going to come out, if that makes any sense at all, which it may not. But yeah, it looks pretty flat when you look at it now. And because the white parts of the tiger are not pure white, I was going in with a bit of grey to get some definition, and then I decided I really needed to get some black markings in there because I just couldn't see the whole picture, and I really just wanted to get some of that definition in, even though painting with black first is a little bit dangerous because the other colours will pick up the black, but I just thought I needed to, and I'm glad I did because once the eyes were in, I felt a lot better about the drawing, and it felt like it progressed a lot more swiftly from here onwards. Now it's starting to look like a tiger, so I think I might play some music for a little while and let you watch some of my process, and I'll come back in near the end to comment on it a bit more. Okay, the black markings down the bottom at the moment don't look very good. They did get better over time, and I started working in some greys into the whiter parts of the fur, and I was trying really hard to get some definition in between some of the paler parts, just so you can actually see where the edges of the muzzle are. So I maybe used a little more grey than was actually shown in the picture, but sometimes you do need to take a bit of artistic license because it's a painting and not a photo, as I always like to say. And I basically just went in with white and grey and just tried to get a bit of a blend and some of the fur definition there. Have I said today how messy pastels are? You can see me picking off little bits and pieces with my fingers. I had it all over me by this point, and I'm basically just going in and finishing up the edges as much as I can to get in the tiny details. And right here is where I started to have a few issues. You can see I'm drawing white pastel onto another piece of paper, and then I was trying to paint it on with linseed oil, and by now there was so much pastel on there that the white just was not showing through at all, so I resorted to using a bit of oil paint, and I'm really glad I did because it made such a huge difference to the painting, drawing, whatever you want to call it. The white oil paint stood out so much more than the oil pastel did, and as you can see I was able to get that nice fur definition onto the black background, which I was not able to get before, and so I went around the whole drawing with some of the paint, just adding little highlights here and there. Call it cheating if you will, but I prefer to think of it as art dictating the art supplies used. And here is my finished piece. I am really happy with how this turned out. For a while there I didn't think I was going to get anything. I thought, oh my goodness, it's going to be a complete disaster, and I just basically kept going, and eventually it came into something that looks at least somewhat like a tiger. And yes, I keep touching it and my hands are really covered in oil pastel grossness, as is my background, but I had a lot of fun with this, even though it was a real challenge. I have to admit that. I really am not very good with oil pastels, and I was just making it up as I went along, but I had a good time, and that's the main thing, and I ended up with a pretty cool artwork here, I think. I like it anyway. Okay, it's not exactly hyper-realistic. I mean, there's not exactly the fur detail that you would get if you had something that was a bit thinner like a pencil, but you try drawing hyper-realistic fur when you have an oil pastel that's gone completely blunt like that. So I did my best, and yeah, I did cheat a little bit with using some oil paint over the top, but the white oil pastel just was not sticking. It was smearing as soon as it came into contact with anything that was darker, and I really wanted that titanium white oil paint just to go over the top and make it a little bit more detailed than what I could get with the oil pastel. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video and watching this tiger emerge out of what looked like a potential disaster when I first began. And don't forget to check out my friend's video where she's also drawing a tiger. I don't know what she's doing with hers. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I will see you all again real soon. Swatch you later. Bye. I actually discovered this much later, but they do have names on them. They're really tiny. This one says Barite Green, and if I just grab another one, look, Celestial Blue as well. So they do have names. I'm really happy about that. Pity I didn't notice that until I think it was at least halfway through the painting, but never mind. I thought I would add this in just so that you know that there are names on the oil pastels, but they're just really tiny and hard to see. Well, they're not so pristine anymore. Those blacks and that white, I think, are probably going to go the fastest out of this, and I'll have to go and buy singles to replace them when I run out. Where? I like it when the sets all look nice, and it's so hard to use them, but I've broken it in now, so I may as well keep going.